Apparently, 8 in 10 swing state voters say that fentanyl misuse is a very important or somewhat important issue when they decide who they're going to vote for in November. So it is a massive problem for ordinary, normal, undecided Americans. Who's got the upper hand on this, Trump or Biden?
It's hard to say. Fentanyl doesn't discriminate. It doesn't determine whether you're a Republican or you're a Democrat if it's going to kill you. But I would certainly say if you look back at the Trump administration, his pro-drug enforcement policies, his border policies were more beneficial to degrading the cartel capabilities, whereas the Biden administration's policies on the open border, allowing in 6 million people in the last 4 years, has greatly enriched the capability of the cartels and expanded their opportunities to smuggle fentanyl into the United States.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds absolutely shocking. The death toll is massive, and everyone can see it happening. So the DEA at the moment, I mean, you must still have a lot of contacts in there or people who are in and around it. Are they just hanging their heads in shame that now, despite everything that they do, their caseload and their workload just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger because of what's going on at the border, which is essentially out of their control?
Well, I would say that they're hanging their head. I mean, DEA recently indicted 8 major Chinese companies that were responsible for sending fentanyl precursors and fentanyl to the United States. They identified an additional 13 Chinese individuals, and then they reached out to the State Department. But, in order to make progress, again, we're back to that bilateral relationship. If China is not going to assist the DEA when they identify who these criminal organizations are in China, then we're really at a really bad place. Because if we can't degrade what I call the center of gravity...
Can I just interrupt
Sure.
there and ask you a quick question about that? Because I think that's an important point. Do you think this is part of a wider geopolitical attempt to destabilise the United States by some people who are not really allies, like the United States of America? Like China, I should say, aided and abetted potentially by the Russians as well.
Well, I think if you look at the history of Chinese aggression towards the United States in terms of intellectual espionage, weather balloons that are spying, cybercrime, certainly it's a quiet, what we call soft war, right? And perhaps China is simply choosing to look the other way while Chinese criminal organizations conspire with the cartels to degrade America's social moral fabric. This is what some would call China's 100-year war or death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah, and that when you put it in those terms, this is why I think conversations like this need to be had purely from a national security point of view. Yeah, look, public health is one thing. That clearly doesn't seem to resonate too much when it comes to the actual decision makers about border security. But what about national security? If it was really hammered home to people, look, do you not think that our very moral fabric and societal norms are currently being undermined to the benefit of and by a state that could well end up being our enemy in 10, 20 years' time? Would that not get through to people more, do you think?
You would think so, but I haven't seen any evidence of that. There seems to be, a certain willful blindness amongst the American population to really understand where the threat emanates from. We often have the conversation in America about fentanyl as though it's just dropping out of the sky, but there's not a real strong conversation on where does fentanyl come from, how is it made, and who are the major players behind the precursor chemical industry, and why isn't more being done to obtain better bilateral cooperation with China, if that's even possible? If not, what is the next mitigation effort?
Yeah, Michael, look, thank you very, very much. Absolutely fascinating conversation. I really hope to get you back on. And I hope, frankly, for the sake of you and everyone in America, that this fentanyl crisis and what's going on at the border stops very, very soon. That is Michael W. Brown, the former special agent at the DEA, giving us the inside look on the reality of what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.